Okay. So, maybe I should. Okay, that's. I guess it's good.
Like when there are people here, I can see them.
Yeah, I'm going to turn this light off for the glare. Okay, so the interesting part is how do we get in here? So you kind of just have to, I'm going to put all my stuff within reach. So you kind of just have to squeeze through, and it's sort of like bendy. But it's kind of tough. And then are you okay with sitting on the floor?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No more sleep.
They're very, very good at sleeping. Here, I'll bring that part. I think this is
You guys know the skeepers. There's only 4 of you.
No, there's more. They're
Oh,
just
okay.
hiding. So,
Alright, kids.
everybody, you sit down and I'll tell you if you're on camera.
Alrighty.
You have to go this way a little bit.
This way.
Like right in here.
Ah.
Alright, that's good. So,
Ah.
so this is Denise from Mountain View Veterinary Hospital in Langley, BC.
Good morning, everyone. Or afternoon, I should say.
And she is a cat expert.
Well, self-touted anyway.
But so you've been a registered animal health technician for 30 years.
30 odd years.
30 odd years.
Yeah.
And then you worked with a cat specialist, right?
I did. I worked with, her name is Margie Shirk, and I worked with her for probably about 9 years in total, and out of my 30 years of a career. So it was lots of fun, actually. She taught me an amazing amount just for handling cats. So it was pretty neat.
That comes in.
Most people are
handle this
afraid.
cat.
Yes, this is Lynx. Hi, Lynx.
The Lynxie.
The Lynx.
Yeah, so, good. So we have a bunch of questions that have come in.
Yeah,
And then if you have questions, you can ask them in the chat and we'll see if we can get
we'll see if we can get to
to them.
everybody's questions.
Oh, I know, someone said something about the glass of water, that I'm being brave, because last time the coblet spilled the water on my laptop and then
Oh, uh-oh, not good.
So it's not very, I'm not being smart right now. Alright, so now I just have to find.
I know that some of you, the previous questions that were asked last week, we had some questions about scratching and things like that. People were asking questions about how to stop their cats from scratching furniture. Some cats have particular things that they like to scratch, and part of the reason that they scratch is they're actually putting their scent on things, and they're also sharpening their claws, of course. So some cats have particular feelings that they like to, the material that they like to feel, and so if your cats are not choosing what you're liking, sometimes you have to go through a number of things. Some cats like cardboard, some cats like carpet, some cats like sisal. So sometimes it's better to give them more options and see which ones they like. Some cats don't take to it just on their own either, so sometimes you have to use catnip. Put a little catnip on there, or what some people are using now is a little bit of lavender will help to get them to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why that world's best cat litter has a lavender.
I think so, yeah.
That makes sense. I did not know that. What about, so Hansaroo likes to scratch. We have 2 chairs up there that he loves the material.
Yeah.
I tried that double thick tape.
Double-sided tape.
Yeah. And that worked, but he just moved basically right to the area right next to it.
What my mom did when we were kids, and that seemed to work quite well for her cats, although it didn't look very nice, was she actually took some very heavy plastic and put it on the areas that they were scratching, and after a little while they get used to not going there. So she just tacked it up on the areas where they were scratching, and that worked for them, because same thing, they go in, they don't like the feel of it with their claws, and they kind of stick. Yeah. Some people do set up some, you are being brave with your water.
I know. Now I'm drinking it.
Some people set up safe little things to scare them so that they don't pick at things, where you might pop a balloon or have a empty box fall on them, just to sort of scare them. Similar idea to using a spray bottle.
Oh yeah.
Where you're not there to see them.
Yeah.
There's also scat mats or a little scat can.
Oh,
where
I've seen
if
that.
they go to it, it'll psst a noise at them, and they don't like that, so that works sometimes too.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Okay, and they have scent glands in their toes?
They do. They have little scent glands in their pads, in their whiskers, and that they rub those on everything. So if you see your cats rubbing on the edge of the corners and things like that with their cheeks or even with their pads, that's what they're doing, is they're putting their scent on things. And in their cheeks they have like the little pheromones. So we use a lot of spray in the clinic. It's called feel away spray, and it's sort of a calming pheromone that moms and that use. And we use it for cats that don't like to go in kennels and things, and it just helps them to calm down and be a little more pliable when they're in the kennels. I know one person had asked a question, how can I get my cat to be a little nicer when we're putting him in the kennel? Sometimes what I do at the clinic is we have these little mice, and I'll spray them with a little bit of the feel away spray and leave it in the kennel, and then the kennel is always a little bit more of a pleasant area for them.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think Shelly's seen us use the feel away
Yes.
spray with some cats that don't really like us that much or are a little bit nervous, and it does tend to help ease some of their anxiousness.
Yeah, we use some with Firefly when she's there
Yeah.
for her stay.
Yeah.
It does seem to help. I use some with Smokey and all of the adults I've had here,
Yeah.
and it does seem to help. That and do you think soothing music helps?
I do. I think that sometimes even cats especially are a lot more visual, and so even whenever I leave home, I always leave the radio on, because although I have 5 cats, they all are different, and I think that they like to hear something.
Mm-hmm.
Some people set up and leave their TVs on, for some cats get bored quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
And myself, I'm a real advocate for indoor cats because I find it's a lot safer. But I know that it's not for every cat. Some cats actually do have to go outside. And for those ones that are stuck indoors, sometimes it's good to have little nature shows on for them. They can watch the birds on the TV. And
I know Leo is now at his forever home, and they've been playing bird videos for him.
oh,
And they have a bird.
yeah,
So that's exciting.
that's
He
good to mention.
enjoys that.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
You've seen these guys with feathers. Are you sure? Yeah, so let's see. Let's see what else we had in here. Here's more of a medical one. Okay, so this is from Pat D. She switched her 2 male cats' food to an all wet food diet because one of them developed urinary problems.
Right.
And the vet suggested he wasn't getting enough liquid. And she said that's true, they don't drink water. So switching over a year ago, there haven't been any more problems except weight gain.
Yeah.
Like, I love to eat. This happened to me too. My cats are PDs. And act like they're starving at mealtime. What to use as a guideline for the amount number of times to feed kitties who don't have access to dry on-demand kibble.
Well, it depends on the type of food that you're using. Each different type of food will have a certain amount of calories, or what we call kcals. So you should actually check with your veterinarian as far as the type of food that you're feeding and see if they can actually do a feeding guide. Because the wet food is actually great. Cats, as we know, are desert creatures. Just think about lions. Lions, they live in like the Serengeti, things like that. They don't get a lot of water. So when they are drinking, they're drinking a lot at and they get a lot of their other moisture through hunting, through their meals. And so a lot of times we don't see our cats drinking, although we put the water out there, we never see them at the water bowl. So unless it's a running water, so giving wet food is actually a really good source of water for them. And I would certainly check with the veterinarian and have them do a little feeding guide for the amount, because wet food can be a little more higher in calories, and because of that they can certainly gain a little bit of weight. There are some dry diets that you can use in conjunction with your wet food to help, so that you can leave out a little bit of food so that you're not always having so much on demand.
Is there anything you can add to wet, like can you add water? Is it a good idea to add water to wet food, or
Certainly.
like what about pumpkin or some of those things?
Pumpkin's gonna just actually give them a little bit more fiber, so you might actually end up having a little bit more droppings in the litter box than, yeah. So it depends on how often you want to scoop your box, but certainly adding a bit more water to their food. If you wanted to use even some drier food and soak it up and use like a urinary SO type food, so one that's good for crystals and both types of crystals, and you could soak that up with water, make it a little bit mushy, and they might not have the same calories that way either.
Lynxie is trying to seduce you with his
He
little upside down tummy.
He's been trying to do it since I sat down.
I know. It's funny. He's like, look how cute I am.
Take me home.
Yeah. Lynxie. Oh, tiny mouse. Okay, so that's good. And what about, so, like my cats act like they're starving when because we have to restrict them so much, because otherwise they get really fat.
Yep.
Is there anything we can do about that? No, probably not.
You could
Exercise them more.
You could exercise them a little bit more. You could also, with the amount of food that they're feeding, you could feed them a bit more often.
Oh.
Or even take out some of their set diet and use some of that as treats during the day. So if I don't actually recommend free feeding, so I actually feed my cats at set times. So my cats get fed when I wake up in the morning and at 6 o'clock at night. And they get I have 5 cats myself, and I use a multi-cat dry food, and they get 3/4 of a cup twice a day of the dry food.
Wow.
Plus they get a teaspoon of wet.
Oh.
Twice a day. And that's all they get. So if they eat it all,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
Yeah.
And I don't usually find that they're getting too much screaming at me, but I will not say that my cats are screaming.
Are they like a 6? We keep saying cats are you're a 6.
Yes.
You can't have any more.
Yeah, and what Shelley's talking about there is the body condition score. Most veterinarians will give it's like a BFI, so a body fat index score. And just like me, my cats are a little on the heavy side. I don't mind too much, and we have a youngster at home now, and he's actually keeping them all.
Oh, good.
A little bit more. But there are things that we can do to help that too, and the more exercise your cats get, then you can increase the amount of their feed that you're feeding as well.
Mine were down to a 1/4 cup twice a day.
Yeah.
And still getting back.
And then you have them on a homemade diet.
Yeah. Although we're maybe switching back to see if there's any sort of allergy.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right, I'm checking the chat now.
I was just gonna say, I do recall that somebody had talked about, they had 2 older gentlemen, I think they were 16, and they were hungry all the time. There are a couple of conditions that older cats can get, and I think this particular woman on the chat had mentioned that her cats might have had hyperthyroidism, and that's one where they seem to eat a lot but don't gain weight. And I believe that she said that she had some problems giving medication, and there are some other things that you can do. So I would certainly talk to your veterinarian if if medication's not a go, there are some other ways that you can help your cat with that as well to give them longer life. So there are things like radioactive iodine, I-131 it's called, and what it does is it helps to reduce the tumor in the thyroid.
Oh, because is it a tumor that causes
It's a tumor,
hyper?
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Cats don't get hypothyroidism,
Oh, they don't.
very rarely.
Oh.
That's more of a human dog disease. Cats get hyperthyroidism. Hi, Jaguar.
We've had some sleepovers with Jag, and he's much less scary now.
I saw that.
Good boy.
And everybody's trashing everything.
I know, they do. This is how they live to trash things. Try. Hey, now you chew on my laptop.
But it's fun, Joe.
I know. Laptops are the best thing ever for cats. This is a random question, not posted by a viewer. Have you seen Cougar nursing on his own paw?
I did. I saw that. That happens sometimes, and what it is it's usually those kittens that are a little bit, they still need some of that nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
So they were, obviously these guys were taken away from their moms too early.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often we find that those cats are ones that still need to have that suckling type thing. They were just taken away from their moms a little too early, and they still need some of that. I have seen cats various times. One of my parents' cats adopted a little Siamese, and we had already had another cat at home, and he came in and just started nursing on her.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't care, but that can happen with any of them. And she actually had a little umbilical hernia, and that's what he nursed on, was her umbilical hernia.
That is funny. I've had kittens that when I let them meet my teenagers upstairs, that they tried to, well, that most of them have tried to nurse on Bunny at least, and sometimes cancer.
And I have seen, well, one of my cats, I actually took him, I used to take him home, my first cat that I adopted from the clinic. He was born at the hospital, and I used to take him on outings with me to get him used to driving in the car and stuff. And when I first had him at home, the first night I woke up in the morning and I had like 8 or 9 little hickeys on my neck, and he thought that I was his mom. So it's like I had to explain to everyone that it was from the cat, not somebody else.
That would be
hard.
funny to explain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. mbvet.ca, right?
Yeah. info@mbvet.ca.
Okay.
That's the email address.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's on your website, right?
Yeah.
So if everyone goes here.
Yeah. And I think that Tiny Kittens has posted the link for MBVet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All over the place. Okay.
Now back to the question.
Alright, I'm checking the chat now, just to see if anyone has posted something in the chat. Yes, everybody vote while you're watching. tinykittens.com/vote.
I voted today already.
Thank you.
Now we're in second place. Yes.
But it's kind of like our lead is
Yeah.
increasing and decreasing.
Good.
Let's see, okay, next question. Okay, here's one about, got a female since 2000, this is from Linda S. Had a female since 2003 who won't use a litter box even though her mother will. Long hair, has knots, she doesn't like to be touched and I can't pick her up. You have to tranquilize her to bathe her. Is she too old to train?
She's not too old to train. I have seen cats as old as 12 or 13 that start refusing to use the litter box. It's never too old to really train, but it can take, it's a very frustrating thing. And you have to go right back to square one. Cats quite often don't like to eat where they're going. And so if you put their food close to their litter box, they might refuse to eat. But a lot of times, to get them to go in a small area, you might have to actually go back to putting them in a crate. So a lot of times people will put them in a boarding kennel. I believe there was somebody else that also had a question that their cat would use the litter box in the boarding kennel, but wouldn't use it at home. And that's probably why, because in the boarding kennel, they don't have an option. And at home, they have a lot of different options. So just like with puppies and that, when you're training them, you want to start in a small area and then give them more room. If you think about a little kid, because that's what they are when they're little, they have so much room to explore that all of a sudden they have to pee. They can't remember where it is.
Right.
Or they're so excited about everything, they say, oh, I have to go. Oh, I'm just going to go here.
Yes, I've seen that with
Yeah.
mine. That's why, oh, by the way, Dr. Ferguson said, tell Denise she's awesome.
Oh.
I don't know if I was supposed to say that out loud, but now everyone knows. One of the other awesome foster parents, foster dad John, when he has kittens, when they start to wean and they start to go, he keeps them all they're in one of those multi-level kind of condo things. And the mom can go come in and out through the top, but the kittens are in the bottom, obviously. And so he puts the puppy pads in there and then waits until they're all going in there, and then he lets them out into a bigger room. And he said that works every time.
Yeah. And so when we're retraining them, like sometimes people they have to give them up because they're so frustrated with those particular types of problems. And it's a hard thing to have come into the clinic and somebody say, you know, I can't keep my cat anymore because of this, I have to euthanize it. And it's not a good, I don't want to say it's not a good reason, but it's not the nicest reason to have to euthanize, because you can still train them. And so some of the shelters and the SPCAs will do is they will try to retrain them to use a litter box so that they can be readopted.
Yeah, it's pretty much impossible to adopt out a cat that won't use
That's right.
a litter box.
Yeah. And so that's the way that they do it, is they put it back into a small area. And once they're going in there, back normally in the litter box and everything, then they start again by giving them a little bit more room. And if they go back to not using the box, then you go back again. And again, sometimes some of the reasons that cats don't use litter boxes is cats have a hard way of telling us that there's something wrong. Sometimes the only way for them to tell us that there's something wrong is to show us. And so for cats, they might have just a little bit of an issue, and so the only way for them to tell us that there's something going on is for them to pee on something to show us that that we know that something's going on. And so a lot of times that's the only way we know that they have a urinary tract infection. So if they're doing it all the time for a long time, first thing I would do would be to check a urine sample and just make sure that they don't have a bladder infection. Because if anybody out there has ever had an issue that way, you can't hold it.
Right, okay.
It's so irritating and painful, it makes you feel like you have to go all the time. And so with cat urine and dog urine, if it gets in anything like carpet or anything, it's really hard to clean. And so if you get just a little spot in there, the smell is there, you want to make sure that you're using a good neutralizer to clean it as well, so that they don't continue to use the same area.
Yes, I have a pee corner in my office.
Yeah.
But I didn't notice until it was too late.
No
So,
chewing.
yeah, see, this is a good question right here. Offline, bitiness.
And then what I'm doing is I'm giving them something that it can chew on. So it is a behavior that a lot of people don't like to have them chewing on, and so that's what you should do.
And is this just a kitten thing?
This is just a kitten thing.
And so eventually, if you just keep
Eventually,
talking out,
yeah.
I'll get the idea.
Yeah.
Why does the lynx need to be upside down and right next to you?
I think he's trying to pick me.
He wants to go home.
He has not really left me since I got here.
I know. Do you want to tell everyone the rule for how to know if you're a crazy cat lady?
Actually, you're supposed to have a cat for every window in your house.
Mm-hmm.
So Shelly should be able to have about 50 cats.
Yay! That's good.
No, one of the cat breeders that used to come to a different clinic that I worked at, that's what he told me. Is that for every window that you have in your house, you should have a cat.
I agree.
So I can still have a couple more. My dog might disagree, but
Oh, Instigator. Instigator gets to go home soon if he's past his special snack, his forbidden snack.
his forbidden snack.
I looked through his poo and I didn't find anything, but then I stopped looking through his poo
Yeah.
because I put him back down here. He seems like he's doing
He,
okay.
he doesn't seem sick.
I know. No, he doesn't. Let's see, I'm looking in the chat.
I'm thinking of some of the other questions that I saw. I know that there was another question about introducing cats and dogs.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and they were worried because the cats were hissing and that at the dog. And they will get used to them eventually, as long as the dog's not being aggressive with the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Ow! Or the cat's not biting too many toes. Really? I think you're my picture on Facebook.
Yes, he is. He remembers you.
Yes. You took something.
Yes, that is Ocelot with Denise
Yeah.
on the Facebook picture, right before his neuter.
Yeah. So, just as long as the dog is not being too aggressive, what I did when I introduced my cats to my dog, and I have a big dog, I have a Mastiff. She's not actually a full Mastiff, so she's only about 40 kilograms. I actually kept her on the leash and let the cats have free run of the house, because they can find places to hide. The dog can only go so many places. And so as long as they have a place to get out of her way, then I will let them have free rein, as long as it's safe. So if there's any growling or barking, then I'll stay in.
Mm-hmm.
So at first have them on the leash so that the introduction is safe. And then once they're getting along, then just see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And keep your cat's nails short, because I have seen dogs lose an eye to a cat, even just in play.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't do it on purpose, but it's just one little swat.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for those dog breeds like Boston Terriers, Pug Dogs, Shih Tzus, things like that, where they already have sort of bulging eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes one little poke.
Oh, that's gonna turn these guys are pretty big.
Yeah. And that's a good thing to get them going. Like Shelly does a good job. These guys are all very well used to having their nails trimmed and everything by the time they go to their new homes. But at home, that's a good thing to do, is play with their ears, look in their eyes, play with their toes, get them used to being handled. And it not only does it help you for when they're trimming their nails, but if they ever needed to have any medication or anything, they're already used to being handled in that way, so it makes it easier for you if you ever have to give them any medication or anything. Right, Ocelot?
Okay, here's a question. I had a rescue kitten, this is from Lydia in the chat. I had a rescue kitten who was leukemia tested before I adopted her. Leukemia tested on her first vet visit, tested a third time when I switched vets. She ended up dying of leukemia at age 7. Oh, and then the rest of the question got cut off. Uh-oh. She said, I blinked, and I don't have the rest. So, Lydia, post the rest of your question, and we'll try to answer it. Perhaps she's asking about the test.
Yeah. They certainly can test positive as kittens. They can be a false positive as a kitten, but it can come from the mom's antibodies, which they get from the milk. So whenever you have a kitten tested positive, you want to retest them within 6 months. And They can be carriers, so although they are positive, they may not show any signs of the disease until later on in life. And so it's not unheard of actually nowadays to have more positive feline leukemia cats out there, and they just need to be treated as long as we're aware of it. So I still recommend testing all cats, and if they've tested positive once, I would retest them again just to make sure, because it could be a false positive, or at least confirm it with a PCR test, which is like a DNA test for it, and which is what we've been doing for the ringworm. And it's actually testing for the DNA of the disease, and we can treat them for quite a number of years, even though they test positive. They may not be sick at the time.
So they can have no symptoms.
They can have no symptoms. And just like with the ringworm, they can have no lesions and still be carriers of the.
So if they're carriers for ringworm or leukemia or any of those things, will they always test positive, or can it come and go?
No, they'll always test positive.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know that you're a carrier for ringworm. Good job.
As far as I know. That one for the ringworm, I could be wrong with, but for leukemia for sure. Yeah.
It's a brand new test.
If they're a carrier, they pretty much always test positive.
All right, here's another one. Let's see. So this is from Leanne, who adopted a 16-week-old kitten about 2 weeks ago. Her back legs seem very unstable. She also can walk kind of sideways. She has one eye that has a retina smaller than the other one too. She's very happy to go into the washroom, although then pooing everywhere, but the kitty litter box filled with pee in it. Anyway, her back legs are always giving out if she runs. Looks like she does these running slides. Was a little concerned and had a vet tell her the eyes been bothering her. She was going like that, and for the legs, just to keep an eye on it. If it gets worse, come back. And she didn't really like that answer. She kind of wanted more information. If you can get any thoughts.
My suggestion, because she didn't like the answer, would be to get a second opinion. There's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion for anything. Most people will actually encourage it. And most kittens, like, I would ask if she's a Manx, because sometimes Manx with their short little tails, and if you're interested in Manx, you want to try to make sure that you get one that has some tail, because the ones that have absolutely no tail or very little tail can actually have a lot of neurological problems in their back end, because their spines don't form all the way to the end. And so that's why I would ask first if she's a Manx, because I have seen Manx where they, with not having those last few vertebrae at the back, my mom actually had one that walked frog-legged. And it's just the way they don't have the same sort of parts in their pelvis. So the spine at the very end doesn't form the same or even develop. And so I've seen them where they can't urinate or defecate either. And so if she's already having problems using the litter box for defecation, I would wonder about that as well. So I would definitely encourage a second opinion.
Okay, that makes sense. We had one at Laps that was kind of just unsteady and uncoordinated, and it seemed like a neurological problem, like if they get stepped on or.
And they can, depending on, they're so small, but just like children, if they get shaken, they can have like shaken kidney syndrome, things like that. So, and that's just a comfort thing for him. He just needs, and there are other particular breeds that do that. Siamese actually are known to be what we call wool suckers.
Oh.
And Siamese tend to choose actually wool. I don't know what it is about them, about wool that they like, but with one of mine, I can't have anything wool out. He takes it and drags it and just goes crazy on it. I've seen cats where they actually suck the end of their tail so there's no hair left.
Oh, that's funny. Oh.
You're being brave.
I know, isn't he being brave? He's been out for 2 days and 2 nights. What about, do you have advice for introducing one of these scamps to an older cat?
I do. What I would suggest would be to put one of these guys, if you have the room, is have them in a separate room for a little bit, like even just a couple of days. Go in, pay attention to them, and then come out, make sure that you have lots of their smell on you. And when you do go in the room, make sure that you have lots of your kitty smell on you as well. Go in, play with them, come out, make sure that you make a big fuss over your resident cat already, that they get the idea of the smell of the new kitty on them, and they can smell and everything. And then slowly just open the door, let them see each other. Some people actually suggest using a screen and do it over a 2-week period. And then part of that is to make sure that you're not introducing any disease or anything too. These guys, we know they're all looked after, they're all disease free and everything by the time they go. And so there's going to be a little bit of stress. And so you might see a little bit of runny eyes, a little bit of sneezing, and there is always some what we call viralis that helps with. Cats have a lot of herpes virus, and you can always use a little bit of that for viralis for stress.
Margie's got it going on right now.
Yeah.
If you guys have seen
I
her
saw
running
her
eyes,
eyes,
she's got, that's what that's from.
And even with my guys, I have 1 or 2 of them that periodically, just a little bit of stress, they get it. And just go in and pay attention to them, and then as the days start to change, then you can slowly let the new one out for a little bit. And just be aware that there is going to be some hissing and a little bit of scrapping. They may not ever get to where they're curling up with each other. It just depends on their personalities. And some cats like to be low, some cats like to be higher. So. But you always want to make sure that you spend just as much time with the resident cat as the new cat.
Yeah.
You don't want to have any jealousy. The other thing, again, that helps with introducing is the feel-away spray.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because it helps to alleviate some of the stress. Everybody's smelling the same thing, and it's a nice calming.
So there you go, everybody.
Yeah. And for myself, I don't advocate this, but I just usually open the door and let everybody have that.
Yeah.
But I think my house is a little bit different.
You have a special house.
I don't know, because I've never had an issue with introducing anyone, and maybe part of it is just I'm not as worried about it either, and so just let
it naturally happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm a big advocate for the feel-away spray for a lot of that.
Okay, well that's good to know. We've been doing blanket trades with the ones that are.
Yeah. And I think somebody else had a question about moving too, or something like that. And the one thing that I always recommend when I'm moving is never wash your, I don't want to say never wash your sheets, but don't wash your sheets from your bed before you make your bed in your new place.
Oh, that's
because then that's one place that your cat normally feels safe is on your bed. And if you wash your sheets, it doesn't have any of the same smell as your old place. And so I always will wash my sheets a couple of days ahead before I move, and then I put the dirty sheets on the bed, and then the cats are comfortable.
Oh,
because they go, oh yeah, okay, this is my place. I can still smell myself on here. This is okay.
Oh, that's a good idea. What about if they're stressed, like in the car and all that stuff? Do you feel away and
feel
just
away in
try
the
to get
car.
it over as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And some cat, I always carry my cats in a carrier in the car. I never have them loose because it's too dangerous. Number one, they can get underneath the pedals when you're driving. Number two, if you were ever in an accident, they can be flying projectiles in the car. Like if you got rear-ended, they could end up through the windscreen or something like that, and then they're lost forever. Or they could get seriously injured just flying around if you got hit. So I actually put them in the carriers, and then I actually seatbelt the carrier to the seat.
Oh.
And
you put them in the front seat or the back seat?
I put them in the back seat, yeah. Because just like with children, and then most carriers, you can either use the handle and put the seatbelt through the handle, or a lot of them actually are made now where the seatbelt can go around, where they have a little slot for the seatbelt to go through.
Oh, that's fancy. I put them sometimes in the front seat when they're crying. I always feel bad, and then I was thinking the other day, it's probably better to have them in the back seat because of the airbag, right? Yeah, just like kids. Precious
just
cargo.
like kids, yeah.
You're gonna just have to cry next time. We got the end of that question about the leukemia test. She was wondering if it was a result of the microchip, or if the microchip could have had anything to do with it.
No.
Okay.
Well, unless they used a dirty needle, that would be the only way, because leukemia is passed on from saliva or blood. So just like feline infectious yes, feline AIDS, thank you. It's like FIV, yes, feline immunodeficiency.
Oh, virus. Yeah.
So just like that, it's passed on through saliva, biting, or like sneezing, things like that. So any type of fighting, then you're gonna get passed on. So if somebody had a dirty needle that they used, yes, it could have definitely been passed on that way. Not the microchip itself, but a dirty needle. Most microchips are individual needles. The microchip is contained within the needle itself. So I would be hard pressed to see that happen that way. But
can they get it from like a bat or a mouse or?
No.
Okay, so other cats.
Just cats. Yeah. Same with the FIV is only contracted through cats. And the FIV can be passed on with, like if you have a queen and a tom, if they're breeding.
Oh.
So you want to make sure that you're testing your breeding animals to make sure that they're not passing that on.
We don't have a lot of breeding animals
here.
If we did, it would make it a lot easier to control all of the chaos that happens. All of the diseases of the things, the crazy pregnancies and that. Let's see. How often do indoor-only cats need to be vaccinated?
Depends on the situation, but certainly that's something that you would need to discuss with your veterinarian. Certainly they still need to be examined every year, because being such a small little animal, they age so much faster than we do, that things change so quickly, that they should still be, if they're not being vaccinated, they should still be examined every year. It's the examination that's probably more important in some respects than the vaccine. If they're not coming into contact with a lot of other cats, then they might be able to go to every 3 years, but we can still bring some of the diseases home ourselves. So if we're doing a lot of volunteer in the shelters and things, and they have some of the diseases there, then your cats, you want to make sure that you're vaccinating them on a more regular basis, be that every year or every 2 years, depending on the severity of the cases that the shelters are seeing that you're working in. Myself, I vaccinate my cats every 3 years. And my cats are strictly indoors. They do get their rabies vaccines, because rabies vaccines is one that, although we don't have a lot of rabies in BC, it's one that if if one of my cats bit someone and they weren't vaccinated for rabies, someone could sort of say, well, you know, I think I want your cat tested for rabies, and the only way to test them is to
brain, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so they have to be
So they have to be put. Oh no. And so I will always vaccinate for rabies, but rabies is also a human health one, where the other cat diseases are not. And so you always have to protect the, same with the dogs. I always vaccinate my dogs for rabies as well.
And you can cross the border then.
Yeah.
Before it's gonna say serious against the smuggle. I'm making a kitten pile, everybody. Look how cute they are. Oh, right
You
there.
guys have lunch and you're all passed out now?
I know, they've been playing, they were a little crazy before you came over. Oh, so cute. I was watching, there's some show about on National Geographic that there could be, like, what to do in a zombie apocalypse, and I didn't know what it was, so I downloaded it because it was about zombies, and they were saying that if rabies mutated to be airborne, it could cause zombie apocalypse. Yeah. Just FYI.
Yeah, okay.
Just FYI. So, if people in the chat, if you have a question, I saw someone suggest preface it with question in all caps, and then that would help me to see it.
Yeah.
There are lots of comments. Let's see. So, I feel like there were some questions that I missed. But okay, I'm gonna go back to Facebook now. There's a bunch of stuff there. Here's one from Sharon W. One of my kitties keeps holding her head to one side. Is this normal? She's also in season.
She could have an ear infection. Sometimes cats, and dogs, if they have a sore ear, they'll sort of cock their head to that side. So certainly she could have a sore ear or an ear infection. Being in heat, I don't think has anything to do with it. Except you might want to have her spayed unless you want to have kittens.
Spay or neuter.
Yeah.
Yes, because we have enough kittens.
Yeah.
And if you need help assistance getting a spay or neuter, you should contact your local shelter, because I know LAPS has a program to provide help for people who can't afford to get spays or neuters.
Most shelters will do what they can to give you to help.
Yeah. So that's good. Public service announcement.
Yeah.
What drives compulsive chewing and licking?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good behavioral question. It could be that is the compulsive chewing and licking on themselves. It could be a food allergy. It could be fleas. It could be a number of different things.
Anxiety.
It could be anxiety as well. And there are medications out there that we can use to help cats with obsessive compulsive behaviors as well. We can use Prozac on cats that have a lot of those problems. There's a number of different types of medications that we can use that way for some of those cats that, for whatever reason, have these obsessive compulsive disorders. Some of it is because they could be strictly indoor cats and may need to go out. There are times when it's just not conducive for a cat to be strictly indoors. They're just too, I don't want to say high strung, but they're too emotionally tied to the outdoors.
Like if they were rescued or if they are used to being outside?
Yeah. And some cats just need that extra what's the word I'm looking for? That extra incentive to It's actually not even an incentive. I have seen, there's a show out called My Cat from Hell.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a Bengal. Bengals are particularly high-strung cats. And this cat used to attack its owner all the time. They actually got a wheel for the cat, just like you
Like
see
a
that
hamster
like a hamster wheel.
Oh.
They actually make those because some cats have so much energy that they need to be able to release that energy. That I actually thought about doing that for my daughter's cat, to get him a wheel, because he will keep her up. He'll wake her up all times in the night for food, and it's just a boredom thing for him. And so the wheels for cats are huge. They're like about 4 feet, so you need to make sure that you have a lot of room for them if you wanted to get one for your cat. But a lot of cats just need that extra stimulation, and that's where even having like your little birdies on the TV or things like that, it's just enough to keep them stimulated where they're busy cats.
Interesting.
Did I just go around the question?
No, that's good. We had, I don't know if any of you guys are watching back in the Jazzy Peanut days, but Peanut had anxiety issues and would pull out he was bald when he came in because he would just pull out all his hair, and it was all growing back in.
Actually, one of my cats at home pulls out his hair, and he does that when he sees other cats in the neighborhood, and that's a stress. So periodically I will plug in the feed away, and it helps. He stops pulling out his hair for a while. Some of it is a Siamese thing for him too, but there are certainly things with particular breeds too. Like wool suckers, and Siamese seem to have a lot of them.
You usually get, we feel like some of these guys might have a little Siamese thing because of their head shape.
Yeah, Oriental short hair or something like that.
They're very special. Here's a question from the chat. My cat has chronic ear infections. Inside her ears are always filled with black crud, and she hates having her ears cleaned. Her claws come out, and our vet has gotten some big cuts because of it. He gave us some Motomax drops to use on an ongoing basis twice a week, but he's given up on trying to clean her ears. I still get concerned every time I see her ears full of crud. They don't seem to be cleaning up on their own. Does this sound like the best course of action? Do you think I should maybe get a second opinion?
You might want to, and have them actually have a look at what's in the ears underneath the microscope. Sometimes they have mites in there that are called ear mites or photodectes, and they can actually recur if just putting ear drops in, like, does it say momentum?
Motomax?
Yeah. If it's not a miticide, it might not be killing mites if they have them in there, and that's why it could be continually coming up. They might be just using like an antibiotic drop, and you can use some topical things that will help to get ear mites. So Revolution is one that would work to help with ear mites, as well as Advantage Multi.
Which would be good because you don't have to go near the ears.
Right.
And then the black crud, the cat would presumably clean the black crud out.
You do still want to clean the ears once, but if it is mites and you're controlling the mites, once you get it under control, the cat probably will feel a lot more comfortable and will let you clean the ears. Because it could be just doing that because it's irritated. Yeah. You didn't want your toes done.
No. He wants to go over and show you how adorable he is. Special.
Very special boy.
Very special.
With your mouse.
He's so. Yes. Okay, here's another question. Where did it go? This is from Little Darling, who sent us this camera after the kittens took out the previous two.
Okay.
And apparently has sent us another camera for backup, because our other one's last. She says, what is the best way to get rid of the urine on urine stained sheets? I've done white vinegar wash in laundry. I don't know there's something more effective.
Yes, are you from Canada or the States?
I think she's from the States.
Okay. In Canada, we actually have a product here called Nature's Miracle.
Oh,
And it helps to actually dissolve the organic materials in the urine and actually lift it out of the mattress and or sheets. And vinegar works well as well. Like on my carpets when I had my puppy, when we were doing puppies, I just used the vinegar, but it doesn't work as well as the Nature's Miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And you can wash the mattress with it, bed sheets, anything that's safe for people and animals. They might have something equivalent in the US.
They probably do.
Yeah.
We probably developed it first.
Probably.
In the US.
Yeah. And it just took a while for us to get it FDA approved.
Yeah, to get it through the border.
Yeah.
It'll probably cost twice as much. Yeah, so we use, I use that too because I have a pee corner, as I mentioned before. I use that. Oh, look at that tummy. Look how long he's getting. Oh, such a good thing.
Then we know he's warm now. Actually, on Facebook this morning, Margie actually posted a little thing, and it was like, if they're cold, they're curled up tight. If they're getting warm, they're a little bit looser. When there's a ray of sun, they're like.
Oh, do your footsteps. Oh. See, who wants to take this guy home with his special brother?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Adorable. They're so cute. Are these the most exceptional kittens?
They are. They just, they're like they're drugged. You just
I know.
place them in positions and they don't move.
I know. They're very especial, aren't you? We're trying to get, so we have lots of announcements today for later, but these are the last two that
Wow.
Yes, let's see. Okay.
Well, now you're gonna suck on Jaguar's toe. Okay, good.
He's not picky.
He's not picking anybody's toes.
Yes, any toe that's not his is preferred, but he will resort to his if he has to.
And he's the only one in the living room.
Uh-huh. Funny.
Just needs a little extra.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Going back to the Facebook. Someone asks, why does my kitten bite?
That's part of their nature. It's part of their hunting. So you can see that if I play, Lynx will bite, or was it Ocelot was biting earlier. Part of it is just play. They're just testing out things, just like with kids, they have to test out things. The only way that they can test things is with their teeth or their claws. And like I said, when Ocelot was doing it, what we want to do is just give them something different. You don't want to encourage that kind of behavior because it can be painful.
Yes. When I was in San Francisco, they have this whole list of things when you're socializing kittens, and they're like, you can't adopt kittens. Kittens get returned if they bite, so
Yeah.
you have to make sure they don't bite.
Yeah, so you want to play with
Fail.
things that
Fail with Ocelot.
they want to play with and not your fingers.
And is it true that they learn bite inhibition and how hard to bite from biting their siblings
And their mom.
and their mom?
Yeah, so just like with puppies and kittens, that's all soggy. You'll hear them, and if they're biting and whatnot, you'll hear the ones that are getting bitten, they'll start to mew, or if it's really hurting, then they'll make a really loud meow. Or like what I do with my cats is I'll go ouch, and if you do it loud enough, they'll stop. And I've actually, we actually at home have a new little guy, his name is Stash, and he's really bad for biting. And he actually was to the point where he will actually grab you, and he'll go like this and like, try to grab a chunk out of you. And I just go ouch really loud, and he kind of stops and looks at me, and it's like, oh, I guess that hurts. So we've got him to the point where he knows what ouch is. he hasn't quite stopped, but it's getting there.
It gets his attention.
So you can work with that, doing that the same way. So just make a loud noise as they're doing it, and it's enough they stop and think, oh, wait.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's good. What about leg climbing? Is leg climbing the same thing as the action?
Yes, and usually for leg climbing, what I'll do is I'll take them off and I'll put them on the floor.
Yeah.
Same with counters and things like that too.
Oh.
If I don't want them on the counter, I pick them up and put them down.
We have a big problem with counters in our house.
I do too.
We have a very lax rules household.
I do too. The only one that's really not allowed on the counter is the dog.
Oh.
But we have one, and I know this was somebody's question from earlier too. We have, with the 5 cats, we have one cat that's a little bit more on the picked on side. And so she has a place that's only hers where she's allowed to go, pardon me, and that's on top of the fridge. So that's her safety spot. So she is allowed to go up on the fridge. If anybody else tries to get up there, then they get in trouble, because she at least she has to have a little area that's for her safety. And I know somebody had a question about they had a litter of 6 cats and one of the girls is getting picked on all the time. There will always be a weaker animal. You just can't help that. In the wild, that she might not have made it. The strongest survival of the fittest is nature, and we have intervened by having them as pets and everything, and so we have to make places for them where they feel safe. And that's where sometimes the feel-away will help, because it might actually change the dynamics in the house, and she could actually be more of an outgoing personality with that and pick on everyone else. So you should always make sure that your cat has somewhere they can go to hide. Safe place from everyone else. So each of them will have their own little safe area.
If you're doing the feel away and you have the cat like roaming the house, should you put it in every room or just in their safe room and that's okay?
It depends on where things are happening. Usually the feel away comes in 2 ways. It comes as a spray, so like a little deodorizer spray almost, that you can spray on blankets and things or in kennels, or it also comes as like a Glad room air freshener, and so we'll just be in like a 30-foot room. And so if you have one room where the cats are really picking on one of the other cats, I'd put it in there and leave it on in there. If you have a small apartment, it would probably work for most of the apartment.
Okay. So would it do any, so it wouldn't really, like if we have someone with a cat that is being aggressive towards her sister and another cat in the household, and she was concerned that it wouldn't do any good if she just put it in one room, if the cat's loose in the house. It
would still do, but I would put it in the room where the aggressive cat was most of the time.
Yeah, and that's just some exposure and then it's okay. It will still have an effect.
You have a soggy foot.
I know, his whole foot is like
soaking
very soggy. Pruny toe. Alright, so let's see. Okay, here's one from Kelly on Facebook. My female 10-year-old cat hates other cats. She was friends with her litter mate until they both got fixed, and then it was war. We eventually had to separate them permanently. I love cats and would like to have more than one. Any ideas to help my kitty accept another?
Well, I think we might have covered some of that with introducing, and I would for sure use feel away for that household.
And just be a really slow, gradual.
Yeah, for that one I would do it really slow, maybe take 2 weeks, and I would actually use first I would have a closed door where they can maybe only see each other underneath the door, and then after a week I would open that door but just have a screen door where they can see each other but can't touch each other.
Have you seen situations where you have litter mates that are friends and then something happens and then they suddenly hate each other?
I have not. but I have heard of it happening. And sometimes it can be even just some little thing changes in their psyche when they go in for surgery.
Mm-hmm. I had a cat that happened, but then she came back and it was like she didn't know any of her previous littermates and didn't want them anywhere near her.
Yeah.
I never knew why it happened. But it sounds like that may have been what happened. Okay. Scanning question. What's the easiest way to trim a cat's claws? You guys are pretty good with, you do lots of nail trims.
Treats.
Oh,
Treats. And I would always use a little bit of treats. Usually I can do them myself. And if you have a couple of treats sitting out, but 1 or 2 people is usually best.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes if you have to, do them when they're sleeping. And you might even just have to do 1 paw at a time. But treats work really well. Cats, a lot of people don't think that cats respond to treats like dogs do, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
Shelly's cats in particular love treats. And you could probably do just about anything to them as long as you had a little treat in. You could probably take blood from them with just a treat. But most cats, if you get them used to it when they're little, and to do that, come here you. It's just, it's joking. It's just holding them and just getting them used to you touching their toes and things like that. And the more that you do things like that, the more they get used to it. Where are you going?
Sometimes
you disturb me.
I know.
Not sucking on my toe anymore.
Like, where did my toe go? Sometimes I have to burrito them.
Sometimes.
And if they're super squirmy and I need to get it done, like if I'm taking them in.
And that's where sometimes having 2 people helps too.
Yeah.
To have 1 person to hold and 1 person to trim.
These guys are pretty good.
Shelley's got them pretty well used to it. And so when they go to their new homes, they'll be fairly well used to having their nails done. Their new owners won't have any trouble. Or shouldn't have too much trouble.
Yeah.
And then I usually recommend doing their nails about once every 2 to 4 weeks, depending.
I do when I notice that they're sharp.
Yeah.
These guys seem like they grow fast. The nails grow fast.
Well, they have a lot of things that they're sharpening their claws on.
They do now, but didn't for until the ringworm went away.
Yeah.
Or
They couldn't have stuff,
They couldn't have anything but each other and their own toes.
Siberia, are you helping him to suck on his toes?
Here's a good one for anyone who's considering adopting Siberian Jaguar, although they're certainly not this bad, but Christina asks, I have 2 feral cats that I've been caring for, but they still won't let me catch them. The female needs some veterinary attention and I'm going to have to trap her, which I hate to do, but are there any hints you can give me on how to get them to trust me enough to let me catch them? She can get close, but she hasn't been able to capture them. How to establish trust with a cat?
Food. Catnip sometimes too works. But food is probably one of the bigger ones. Food and attention. So if you can get them to come up to you with a bit of food and then slowly start to pet them. Actually, the person to talk to about feral cats and that would probably almost be Florence, because she's so good
that's true.
at taming. I haven't had a lot to do with feral cats. They're usually tamed by the time I see them.
Right, because you take care of people's pets.
Yeah.
So Florence is one of our awesome volunteers at LAPS. She does fostering. She has a magical touch with all sorts of kittens and cats and everything. She's very good with that.
But even these guys were feral when Shelley first got them, and just once you can catch them, the more you pay attention to them and pet them and just love them, the easier they are to handle.
So food, bribe them with food first.
Yep. Feed away might help a little bit there too.
Oh, because she could spray something outside.
Or on herself.
Oh,
When
okay.
she goes over to them, and it might change how they perceive her. They're gonna think I'm just selling.
I know. Who paid you? I'll send them the bill. Oh, okay, here's another question related to the nail question. What about, what's the best way to bathe a cat?
Let themselves bathe them. I actually am not a big advocate of bathing cats unless they have a skin issue that needs to be addressed. Cats are very clean, and most often, if they get any dirt or anything on them, unless it's grease or they need to have a medicated bath, there's really no reason to bath a cat. They're usually pretty clean, so unless they're matted and get urine soaked or anything, but otherwise I would just trim their nails, and I would do them probably in the kitchen sink with a sprayer, and just wet them down, soak them up, rinse them off. And most cats will not sit under a dryer, and so just towel them off as much as possible, and then just keep them warm. You could put them under a blow dryer, but you want to make sure that it's not getting too hot in one area and burning them.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so let's see. Tanya asks, what can I do for my young male cat that has chronic UTIs? Is there a daily supplement that you would recommend?
I would recommend talking with your veterinarian and seeing if there's not a special diet that he can go on for his chronic UTIs. It also is possible that he may have a bladder stone. So sometimes they can actually get not just the crystals, but those crystals form actual stones in their bladder, and it can be very irritating to the lining of the bladder. It's a constant source of infection, and so they'll always have some little bit of bladder infection going on. So their body's constantly bombarded by bacteria, which can then go up past the kidney, so it can go backwards, and cause other issues in the rest of their body. So if they're having something chronic like that, I would certainly take them in, have your veterinarian do a urinalysis, and possibly even an x-ray to check for bladder stones.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Okay, here's one from Sarah. My cat is about 12 or 13. She has bad teeth. I tried to get her dental surgery, but she reacted very badly. She essentially stopped breathing. They had to abort the surgery. Needless to say, she can't go under again. Her breathing has been affected ever since. She doesn't seem to be in pain, and her behavior hasn't changed, although she's not happy about the weather. Is there something I can do to help her poor teeth, the ones that are still there?
I would still suggest trying to have a dentistry done. Now, I know that you had some issues with the anesthetic, so what I would suggest would be to go to your veterinarian, have some blood work done. You might even need to have a board-certified anesthetist and have some x-rays of her chest, just to make sure that there's not a lung issue or something going on. Make sure you have all the tests done first, and then proceed with the dentistry from there. There's really not a lot that we can do for their teeth unless they're asleep, because if we try to just scrape it off with our hand instruments, we're only doing half a job. If we don't get up below the gum line, we're not doing anything. So below the gum line is where all the bacteria bombards the blood vessels, and then it carries on through the rest of our body system. And so we really need to have an actual anesthetic. So I would just make sure that you cover all the bases. So have an x-ray done, make sure that her heart and lungs are okay, have some blood work so that we know what her liver and kidneys are like, and then possibly have an anesthetist, a board certified anesthetist, and perhaps even a dental surgeon, because they go a little bit faster than your regular dentist or veterinary dentist.
I remember when you took out Firefly's tooth, I had no idea how far the canine goes up into it. Was like only half of it was sticking out below and half of it was above the gum line.
Actually, it's about a third of what we see, and 2/3 of the root is below the gum line that we don't see.
Wow, a third.
Yeah. So there's actually quite a bit
Not
that we don't see. And cats get some pretty nasty, what we call resorptive lesions. And actually, I need to have one of my cats have a dentistry because she's got some resorptive lesions in her mouth, and that's where the roots are starting to be resorbed back into the bone, and the crown of the tooth is kind of being eaten away. But until that happens, it's quite painful. So I feel like a bad mom because I haven't noticed my cat's tooth.
Panther's new brother Dozer had resorptive lesion, and it's hard to notice because cats are so stoic about pain.
Yeah.
But he got some teeth. He may have to get more teeth.
Yeah.
So there's no way to.
There's no way of knowing, and there's no way of knowing, like, if they're gonna have it, and there's no way of knowing if one tooth has already had it, if the rest of his teeth are even going to be affected.
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory, but
What's your theory?
my theory is that Siamese cats tend to get a lot of it, or some of the exotic breeds tend to have a little bit more. The one of my cats in particular, she's an Oriental short hair. She's just about not got any of her teeth. But if I think back, a lot of the dentistries that I've done where the animals have resorptive lesions for a lot of their teeth, a lot of them are Siamese. And they actually have found cats, mummified cats from the ancient Egyptians, where they had resorptive lesions in the mummified cat. So it's something that's gone back a long time, and so it's not a nutritional thing. We don't know exactly what causes it. They haven't discovered yet why cats get resorptive lesions and why.
So
and how to stop it.
And so if you look inside your cat's mouth and you see little red
little red dot, well, what you'll see is the tooth. You might see part of the tooth, or you might just see like an angry red covering of the tooth. And that would be the tooth is almost gone due to a resorptive lesion. Sometimes we don't even notice until we actually get into the cat's mouth and we take an x-ray. And once we take an x-ray, we can see where the roots were starting to resorb, but there's no other evidence that there was even a tooth there.
That would hurt.
Yes.
That'd be like having a cavity all the time with your root exposed. So it's 1:23. I don't know how long you're working on.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, time flies. So Denise gave up her day off to come by here and answer some questions, and I know we didn't get to everybody's.
But in saying that, if Shelley wanted to do it again, we can do it again.
That'd be cool.
At another time.
All right, cool. So thank everybody. Hail Denise, and thank you for coming. And
I enjoyed myself. This was lots of fun.
And you got to see some adorable
awesome kittens.
Exceptional kittens. But it was very nice of you to give up your day off.
Yes. Well, thank you for all your questions, everyone. It was fun.
And sorry if we didn't get to some of them.
Yeah.
I was reading slowly.
But if Shelley's up for it, we'll do it again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of good times. All right, good. So I'll come back down and I'll fill everyone in on the adoption things and other announcements, and then
And we had no escapees.
I know you kept them mesmerized. with your questions and answers, your answers.
Is your phone safe?
Oh, yeah. I'll get my laptop on. Yeah, all right. Get to know her, man. Okay.
I didn't have to go shopping for Sharon, I probably would have stayed longer.
Christmas
Somehow
present?
she thinks she needs to have some Christmas.
Are you gonna get her a good one? Do you know what to get her?
Well, I usually can get her diamonds, but
Oh.
not this year.
Oh.
Because of just getting back in track. Don't
Yeah.
quite have enough for this year. Next year she'll get some diamonds.
Aw, that's
She
nice.
usually gets them.
Oh. That's fun.
Have to get Emily a onesie. Because adults that want onesies.